Hey, my name's Tobberz, and today I'm going to be going through some basic principles on how to do interior structures. I'm going to be concentrating on Bree today, which is very demonstrative of the sort of work we're doing at the moment. First I'm going to show you a completed house which I've done, then we're going to do one together. So the basic idea of interior structures is building all the walls, sorting out where the rooms go, building the floors, laying out specifically where each item inside the house will go, what each room is for, etc. Now, as you can see, I've not actually got the resource pack on right now, so let me fix that. So if we check on top of the house, we'll see that the interior structure was for a tailor, which is what I built it for. You'll also see what it's supposed to be in the job when you claim the job. So I've built this so that there's a sort of front of shop area here, a counter area with a back of shop area, sort of actual tailoring area. Downstairs I've also added a basement. You won't want to add basements to all your houses, but a fair amount of them would make sense, especially if it's a shop, etc. You might want somewhere to store all the shop's sort of stuff. In this case, all the fabrics. Now on the first floor, because it's a shop, I've added the dining and living area. I've added a hole for someone to build a pretty fireplace and chimney at some point. Put one bedroom on this floor, 2 bedrooms on this floor, and an additional living area. You'll also notice that the walls are continuous throughout the house. So the walls on this floor are the same as on this floor, which are the same as on the floor below, and also in the basement too, if you remember when we were down there. This is to ensure some reality, some stability, because of course you can't just have a wall on the first floor which isn't on the ground floor, because, well, it would just fall through. The only exception to this rule is if you have a beam going across which would hold up the wall above, but you can't just have them floating. Not only is this realistic, but it actually adds to the sort of aesthetic feeling of the build, because even if it's just subconsciously, the person who's exploring the build will understand that there's some sort of realistic continuity throughout. So now we're going to find a new building to work on, and I'll bring you along with me as I do it. So let's check which jobs need doing by using job list and going to Bree. Let's have a look at this hat maker. As you can see, it says up here, hat maker population 5. So first let's claim the job. Now step 1, as you can see, it's got no windows or doors. So we'll first make a space for a door and have a little look inside. Now as you can see, there's plenty of space down here for a basement, and I suggest in this case a basement is almost compulsory because of how much room there is down here. This is a diagonal house, which makes it a little more complex in terms of interior decorating and structuring, but I don't think it's that big of a problem. Let me just turn down my volume. So step 1 is to clean everything out down here, make sure it's got a nice flat surface and there's nothing in the way in terms of the sort of interior. Now we're going to want to extend the walls down here so there's no ugly grass, and also put a nice floor in. It doesn't have to be the final floor, it can just be a placeholder block, which is actually what I suggest at this point, and the same for the walls. Now I tend to use the grey concrete because it fits best aesthetically with the walls as they are textured. Now we can think about where the floors are going to go. You just need to mark these out very basically for now. This is obviously going to line up there. That one makes sense lining up there. We're going to have a nice airy basement and also an attic level here. So you can see we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 floors in total. Now, because it's as I said, a diagonal house, the interior structure is going to be a little more complicated. So I'm just going to have a brief think about this for now. Okay, here's my initial layout. I might change it a little later if I get confused about what's going on. I know it looks a bit weird, but it'll make more sense once I've built up the walls a little more. So all we're going to do now is extend these walls all the way up, and we're going to change the colour once it gets to here, obviously, and then I'll be right back. Now I've actually stopped it here for now because I'd like to have a think about how this staircase is going to work. So the most basic staircase form is just a pillar going up like this and then having stairs snake around it like that. But I'm not sure if that's going to work the best way here. So I'm going to experiment with some switchback stairs to see if that works a little better. Okay, well actually the switchback stair style seems to work pretty well. I'd always suggest working out the stairs before you go into the floors and finishing off the walls, because it makes everything a lot easier in that respect. So I'm just going to finish off these stairs now. Okay, now I've made the walls go up a little higher. It looks pretty crazy right now. I'm not going to do the walls all the way up just yet, because I want to be able to fly around and have a look at stuff for now. So what I'm going to do now, in fact, is put in the floors. In this case I'm going to use stripped wood, stripped log, because I think it looks good with floors and I don't want to just use oak wood for everything. Most of you who play on here will know that the typical EpicQuestz style, and the one we usually go for, is this. You don't have to do it one apart, you can do it two apart as well if you wish for that. Now this is going to be the little hole where the fella sells his wares through, the hat maker. So there's going to be the area of the shop where you come in and sort of order your hats from here. And now this is going to go back into the staff area. I might rejig this a little later if I dislike how it works, but it's always good to have an initial plan in your head. One thing to note is the beam should almost always, well, generally go across the shortest width. So you can see they're going across this way as opposed to that way because it's the shortest. Same here, they're going perpendicular to this wall because that's the shortest width. You wouldn't have a huge beam going across here. I mean, it's possible, depends on the situation, you should use your discretion, but that's just a general rule. We'll leave this attic area till last because I'm not quite sure what we want to do with it yet. And I'll try and make this roof look a little prettier as well. Now we'll leave that till later. Right, we've now got the interior structure at a basic level laid out, but we don't have the doors in their final placements yet. We haven't dealt with the windows or the actual physical doors. We haven't decided what rooms are for yet, and we also haven't done the attic, so there's a little more to do first. I think now we should concentrate on what to do with the windows. Now this is slightly more complicated as you have to consider both the interior structure and the exterior structure. So now I'm going to have a little look around and decide exactly where to put the windows. Remember, you can also add dormer windows into the roof, which can be useful if you have rooms up there, or if you just want to add a little more interest to the otherwise pretty flat roofs. You can see we've done that over here. And once you put a window on the outside, you want to check the inside to make sure it makes sense in there as well. Now, you can see that the back of this house hasn't quite been finished yet. Now, that's not your job as an interior structurer, but you should at least take into account that, for instance, there will be a house going here, so there's no point putting a window right here. Now, there might be a point putting a window here. If it needs to be covered up at a later point, it will be, but clearly this is in the middle of a wall, so don't bother there. And also make sure all the windows are the same height inside, otherwise it'll be really confusing if one window's up there and one's there, unless it's for a specific purpose. For instance, it might be a better idea when one's in the cellar, like here, to have windows higher up, because it gives more of a feeling like you're in a basement. In fact, I might get rid of this one here, because you don't want to add too many windows, because windows cost money, and poor people, frankly, wouldn't be able to afford windows. So in these cases, you want to check inside and decide where exactly they look best. Okay, we're going to think a little more about doors now. I'll put in the glass for the windows a little later. Now there are plenty of doors to choose from. The ones I'd suggest are the oak door, the spruce door, the acacia door, and the dark oak door. Those fit the best in these situations. The dark oak door is a good sort of back door in its aesthetic. If we come over to the one I did earlier, you can see I've used it over here. But as a front door it looks a little bit intimidating, which is why I suggest using something like a spruce door for a typical exterior door. Ta-da! Now you don't need to use all the same doors inside. Interior-wise, acacia doors can look a little more homely, depends on the decoration, or oak doors as well. Like that. You see, that's a little too bright in my opinion. If we went for that, I think that looks a little prettier. You also don't actually need to put doors in every door frame. For instance here, a nice idea might be to get an andesite slab and just go for something like that. Since this is a little sort of staff cubby room after all. Down here in the basement, this looks like a good place to have a larder or somewhere to store cold food. I'm going to use this door here, so I think it looks a little more sort of, I don't know, cold proof, if that makes sense. So we put our larder in here. There's also, of course, a little extra space over here. We're going to have to decide what to do with that. But I think in this case, I'm going to just have an open door frame like that. Now up here, because the texture of the walls has changed, we don't want to use exactly the same thing, because andesite might look a little strange there once the walls are textured properly, and we don't exactly know how they're being textured yet. A good neutral one to go for here is oak. So I think this will be the main living floor, but we're going to put a bedroom in here. And up here we can fit some more bedrooms. So let's just finish off the attic interior structure. I think that looks aesthetically pleasing. Right, now we're going to want to think about the windows. Specifically what goes in these big holes we've made. Now if we pop over to the one I did earlier, you'll see typically this sort of glass is used. In this pack it's actually called cyan stained glass pane, which is a little odd, but it's clearly not cyan, it's this nice texture. And you're going to want to choose a sort of glass. There are other options as well, but I'd always use this for this map as it looks the most medieval. And also you want to grab some shutters. So there are blue shutters and there are also green shutters. I'm going to use blue like on this house since it's most simple. Now the big difference here is that of course there are some windows which are like this. They're on an angle, which means that panes don't work. So here we want to go and get the full glass block. Which will fit better. Regarding shutters, there are a few ways you can do them. For instance, on these, you can have them completely shut, which I'd keep to a minimum because you're basically losing the window. You can have them completely open, like that, which can work well. Or, even better, you can have them like this, which is partially open. In this case I'd do that. And then down here we can do something slightly different. We can have them partially open. Oops. And the same here. Now here having them completely shut I mean, it clearly doesn't work aesthetically. That'll do for now, and the final thing we want to do, of course, is label all the rooms and also decide where the chimney's going to go. So I'll be back in just a moment to do that. Okay, we're back, and it's the most exciting part, which is deciding what all the rooms do. Before that, though, I think we're going to make this little sort of cubby hole a little more interesting. So I'm going to get some polished stone, put that down here. And we're going to want to have something going across the top as well. I'd suggest more of that pretty andesite. Oh, we already had some, never mind. Let's see what we can do here. That'll do for now. It'll make more sense when the rest of it is textured. And of course, the person who comes in and does the interior decorating later can make some changes if he or she wishes. Right, so you want to get the interior decor block and a sign. Don't use one of these stupid signs, you can barely read anything on them. And just write something descriptive on here to tell the interior decorator what they want to do. You don't need to be too specific, but don't be too vague either. In my experience, the decorator wants to have, you know, a pretty good idea of what he's supposed to be doing in here. Now that we're back here, I realise this area is a little too open-ended to be the main sort of hat-making area. I mean, there's an entrance here, a hole in the wall here, a staircase here. You wouldn't be able to have any room to make your hats here. So the other option would be to put it downstairs in the basement, which is certainly possible, as there's some nice big windows here, it's not too dark. If there were no windows here, I'd definitely not suggest putting something like a hat maker or a tailor in the basement, because he needs, you know, really good light. They don't have electric lights. The other option, of course, would be to put it up here, but I'm going to shy away from that, as this is generally, the first floor is generally where you'd have the living quarters. So I'm going to put the hat making area downstairs in this area here, and back here as well. Now we're up on the first floor, we're going to want to think about where to put this fireplace and the chimney. Now this is probably going to go in your kitchen. Some larger houses will have at least one fireplace. In reality, houses would have probably quite a few, but this is Minecraft, so we need to make some concessions. I'm not going to put it in this area. I'd suggest this would be a good kitchen area here, and we can put the fireplace against one of these walls. For instance, here, does that work? You're going to want to go all the way up and all the way down to check that there's nothing, you know, sort of obstructing where the chimney's going to go. This looks pretty good. So we're going to demolish this bit of wall here. And this will be the sort of channel where the chimney goes up. And someone else will actually build this, you don't need to worry about it. And we're just going to note here, this is where the main stove is going to go. And at this point you're going to want to remember the population of the house, which is notated on the top. So we're going to put one person here and 4 people upstairs. Although, looking at this room, as you can tell, it is a little pokey, so we might swap that around actually. Alternatively, we could put... Yeah, no, that's actually a good idea. We're going to put 3 people in here, so 2 parents and a child. So we're going to have 1 here, 1 below, 3 in here, which makes, if my mathematics is correct, 5 people. We've basically done everything we need to do as interior structurers now. We've built the walls inside, we've built the floors, we've allocated the rooms, we've done the windows, we've sorted out the doors, and that's basically it. The only remaining thing you might want to think about is, as I mentioned earlier, putting windows in the roof. I'm going to leave that here for now. You just want to check the roof looks pretty as well. I'm going to leave that for now. You'll of course also notice that the walls aren't properly textured. I'm also going to leave that. You might want to do that, but you're going to need to ask one of the project leaders what the walls are supposed to look like before you texture it. Alternatively, of course, you could just message one of the project leaders, in this case Doglover or Limefox, and ask them to do it themselves. So for now, I think that's that. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me or one of the project leaders. I might be following this up with some other examples later on, but for now, that's it. Thanks for watching.